2019 budget. That is the only item on our agenda today. But we want to be sure, in addition to welcoming you here, that we go through a regular protocol for any official meeting. And that is, we'll start with an invocation and pledge of allegiance. Then we do have a time for public comments. We've had a couple of people to sign up, but I think all of us are familiar with the issues that we're dealing with here. So I trust that will be fairly abbreviated, and then we'll go right into the single order of business, that being the budget for 2019. So at this point in time, let me call on Pastor Roy Wesley, who will come and give us an invocation. And then we've got two scouts, Brent King and William Burrs, who will join him and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please stand as you are able for the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance?
Let us pray. Our Father and our God, we are thankful for this day, and we are thankful that we are yet alive in it. We come now, Lord, on behalf of business for the city and vicinity, and we ask you, Lord God, first of all, for a meeting of the mind, that the thoughts may be directed upon what's best for the people. And so we pray, O God, that all that will be brought forth will be in consideration of all and not just some. And so, God, we invite your presence now into this place and give you permission to have your way, that you may rule and super rule. And God, we ask you now to bless the mayor, all council persons, and everyone that are here today that shall participate, that all that's done will be pleasing in your sight. For we ask these blessings with thanksgiving in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. Our invocation was given by Pastor Roy Wesley, originally born in Davisboro, but he went to the New Jersey and grew up in Atlantic City, New Jersey, attended Atlantic City Public Schools, and studied at the Atlantic Community College, Philadelphia College of the Bible. In his home church, served as deacon before accepting the call to ministry in November 1995. He's married, has two sons, given them 2 daughters and 4 grandchildren. That's absolutely wonderful. But he's come back and now is the pastor of the New Zion Baptist Church. We're delighted to have you back home, Pastor Wesley, and thank you very much for being here today to lead us in our invocation. Pledge of Allegiance was led by 2 scouts, Boy Scout Brent King, and he attends Veterans Elementary School, enjoys scouting, reading, and spending time with his family. And William Burrs is also in the Cub Scouts, and he enjoys scouting, playing outside, and spending time with his family. He's a wolf in the Cub Scouts, so we thank you very much for being here and leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. We're delighted that you're here. The next item on our agenda is to have public comments, and we had 2 or 3 people to sign up for us, and we trust that you'll be brief in your remarks. The first is Dr. Thomas Duval, who signed up and wants to talk to us about the budget and about funding for the Tubman Museum. Dr. Duval, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate you being here.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Thomas Duval, born in Pleasant Hill, St. Luke Hospital. Come from a family that got here about 5 years after the Civil War. I want to talk to you about what I've been saying and haven't had the courage to say in public is the problem we have of what I deem the elephants in the room that we're not talking about. Macon is shrinking, and our tax base is going down. And it comes from the real and perceived problems in the school, and the real and perceived problems of violence in the community. Now, what you don't hear a lot about are solutions. You hear a lot of people complaining, but you don't really hear a lot about solutions. Now, I am from here, proud of it. And I'm here to say that the solution is going to come from our common history and culture. Now, the great thing about Macon, Georgia is this. Our African American history and culture is recorded. It's in the library. We've got it. We've also got another great institution here, the Tubman Museum. Now, what we have to do, and what I have joined the Tubman board to do, is to find engaging ways to motivate our children to want to learn. There's not going to be any education to any great degree except for the talented 10th unless you motivate our children to want to learn. The question becomes, how do you do that for at-risk, mostly African American youth in Macon, Georgia? And I'm here to tell you it's going to come from our common history and culture, and we got a great one right here in Macon, Georgia. Now, one of the ways to do that, and the place we need to start, is with K to 4th grade. Now, this is an example of how to do this. This is a coloring book, but this is more than that. This is also milestone preparation around our local history and culture. This is the kind of activity that I joined the Tubman board to do. Now, we can do that around our music, and I've done it with activities around the music. We can have our kids do hip hop, and even, I'll go ahead and say it, rap songs about our local African American leaders. And I've done that. That's how I bait them into doing it. And they do it in front of a green screen, and they learn vocabulary, they learn history, they basically learn the stuff they need to do well on their milestone exam. So, I'm here to encourage and really beg that you not defund the Tubman. Because it really comes down to this. We can have kids run around here with gang signs on and all the other things that are well represented, maybe overrepresented in the paper. Or we can have them running around here with t-shirts like this on, representing local, iconic African American leaders. Macon, Georgia was a seedbed for education, not just for Macon, not just for Bibb County. Macon, Georgia, Ballard Normal, Lewis High, was a seedbed for education for this whole country. And if you don't know that history, that's part of the problem. So we can go ahead and continue to do the general things that we've done in the past, and this is an old emblem here on a little shirt for the Tubman. But what I've been encouraging our staff to do let's bring it up to date. Let's talk about our local heroes here, Ellen and William Kraft.
Dr. Duvall, thank you very much for your comments. Your time has expired, sir. Let me call on Andy Ambrose. He signed up to talk next, and I'm confident he wants to talk about the Tubman, so maybe he can pick up where Dr. Duvall left off.
Thank you very much, and I thank Dr. Duvall for his comments as well. I didn't know we'd be tag teaming here, but I want to point out a few things after having sat through a lot of the commission meetings, and bring a little bit of a different perspective here, because we're talking a lot about the future of this city county, and I want to emphasize the fact that the cities that thrive and prosper are those that invest in and provide a high quality of life for their citizens. That includes like strong educational opportunities for youth, a wide array of arts and cultural experiences, a thriving and dynamic downtown with diverse entertainment and business offerings, and educational and recreational outreach and support to underserved communities, schools, and families. The Tubman Museum and the other so-called outside agencies provide all of these important contributions to quality of life, educational attainment, and economic growth. And cutting funding to them is not going to enrich the community, bring in industries, or make this city county a place people want to come to or live in. In fact, I would suggest they would do the opposite. The Tubman Museum, as Dr. Duvall has so eloquently stated, provides all of these benefits through our educational outreach, public events and entertainment offerings, including the Pan-African Festival of Georgia, all that jazz, free drive-in movies, drum circles, outdoor concerts. But what I also want to point out is that organizations like the Tubman pay back in excess of what they receive from public funding. Let's just quickly take the examples of those two events I talked about, the Pan-African Festival of Georgia and all that jazz. The Pan-African Festival of Georgia this year had to move to Central City Park because we had outgrown the space outside the museum. And we jumped from 17,000 people in attendance to over 25,000 people in Central City Park. Also, our vendors were numbered over 100. So I want you to think about one moment the economic impact of that. That's not all coming back to the museum. In fact, that's a free public event that cost us over $200,000 to provide. Why do we do it? Because it brings people from all over Middle Georgia, all over the states just outside of Georgia, and we can document this. There, all of those people are really expressing and celebrating a shared culture. This isn't just African American for African Americans, and that's important to remember. But if you think about the sales tax that comes from that, the contributions, those vendors were busy all weekend long. Now, coming up in January, all that jazz. It's grown so big, we've got to leave the city auditorium. We're going to the Centerplex. If you don't know yet, Patti LaBelle's coming back for the first time in 26 years to perform in Macon. Think about the economic impact of that. The sales taxes of the Ticketmaster, the sales taxes that come from parking fees and from concessions and stuff, that doesn't come to us, that comes back to the community. But at the same time, we enrich the community. And finally, I want to say that we have provided an option to not only sustain the Tubman Museum after this year, hopefully, but also eventually get us off of this budget. And that is by working with us, the CVB, and our legislative delegation to raise the sales tax 1%, like communities throughout this state, devote that money to the Tubman, and we will be able to continue and expand what we're doing, and it will not cost anybody in this, unless you're living at a hotel, it's not going to cost you anything, anybody who's in this community, anything. It's not going to be based on increasing property taxes or increasing sales taxes. So I think we have to work together, but let's not be short-sighted. Let's not cut funding to organizations that add not only to quality of life, but educational attainment, that are going to bring employers here. We can't cut our way and get rid of all of these things and expect that employers are going to want to come to this community. We can't ignore, as Dr. Duvall has said, educational challenges that we can address, and that the other outside agencies can bring resources that no one else is providing. So please, I urge you, I know this is a difficult decision. I don't envy you, but I do want you to keep in mind, let's not hurt the community by trying to cut our way to this solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ambrose. We appreciate you being here and appreciate your comments. Terry McGee is next. Terry? Glad you're here, Mr. McGee. You're recognized for 5 minutes, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm retired. I come down here so much like I'm trying to go back to work. I said the current budget has deductions that will be here that will repeat next year. Will you use another tax increase to balance the budget? If expenses are not reduced, the same scenario will happen next year. You have furlough days included in the budget, but are hiring new staff next year. What are the expenses that are contributing to the deficit, and are you willing to reduce those expenses? If revenue projections are off significantly, as in past years, what is the backup plan? Why expenses have not been reduced by at least $6 million? Well, I'm projecting $10 million to deal with this. Outside agencies are easy targets, but the costs are minimal compared to the services provided. All the swags have a tax increase, but spending reduction is needed. Until the expenses are reduced by $10 million, we will be here next year and years to come. We have more government than we can afford based on the revenues we have. The expenses need to be reduced immediately, or Macon-Bibb is headed to bankruptcy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGee. Finally, have David Lucas. Thank you for being here, David. You're recognized 5 minutes, sir.
Well, Mayor and Commissioners, I won't take 5 minutes. I'm usually here in a coat and tie because I'm working for y'all, but today I'm working from a church trying to fix a leak in the roof. I just implore you to go ahead and pass the budget that needs to be passed. I know it's a millage increase. Nobody wants to pay it, but we've got to do it. The pastor may have left, but the ox is in the ditch, and we need to get him out. So I implore you to do that. You're being looked at in what you do today by financial institutions, rating agencies, and other communities around the state. We need you to pass this budget, and I just implore you to go ahead and do it. As I say, nobody likes it, taxes, but you can do the cuts, excuse me, after July 1. But I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. We appreciate you being in, appreciate your work on our behalf. That's the end of the public comments. That brings us now to the old business, which is the budget. As a way of background, let me say that Operations and Finance took the budget that I originally proposed back in the early part of May of this year. That budget that I presented proposed a 3.7 mil increase, but asked for 3 unpaid holidays from the employees, as well as cuts to outside agencies and other cuts in the budget. Operations and Finance took that budget and worked on it for, well, they're still working. They're still working, and I want to say thank you to Chairman Watkins, who did a lot of extra work above and beyond to go and talk especially to outside agencies and learn more about the outside agencies. The Operations and Finance Committee came back with their version of the budget, which I believe had a millage rate increase of 3.29. That was brought before the commission about 2 weeks ago, and it failed to get 6 votes here. in pre-commission and was actually withdrawn from the meeting, and we went back in and had additional meetings with operations and finance. Since then, we've had several additional variations of the budget proposed, none formally voted on. So I thought a good way for us to come up to speed would be to ask Julie Moore, who is the Director of Budget and Strategic Planning, to go back through the variations, and I think we may even have a chart that we can put up on the screen for those of you that are sitting in the audience, as well as for commissioners to look at their table, and bring us up to speed basically on the budget variations that have been introduced and requested. Julie?
Thank you. First, I have a message from David Corbin, who was with us on Tuesday. It is part of our Terminus financial advisor. He's asked me to remind you all that the budget is full of legacy funding commitments for which you really have little control over. This new government has old commitments. Pensions were in place long before you were elected. You stand on the shoulders of public servants who have made sure appropriate investments were made to retirement plans on behalf of your employees. You have maintained that commitment with your annual required contribution, and you have shown the diligence to ensure that these funds are protected and well invested. So while we may be one of the few municipalities that pays 100% of the contribution, we are also one of the few municipalities that have well-funded pension plans. OPEB, which is the other post-employment benefits, was established prior to 2014. But in early 2014, you discussed who had access to the OPEB benefits and should that be expanded. Collectively, you determined not to burden future commissions by expanding all of the same benefits to all future retirees because you were cognizant of not imposing another legacy funding commitment. You kept your focus on the retiree. But through these decisions, you've always held employees and citizens in the highest regard. In 2015, when revenues began to be reduced, seeking equal taxation, expenditures had to be reduced. But your commitment to employees led you to offer a retirement option instead of a RIF. In fact, in an effort to give people enough time to consider it, you spread it over 2 fiscal years. Your focus was on the employee. The investments in public safety through needed salary increases to the sheriff and fire last year have become an important legacy funding commitment as we tried to attract and keep quality employees. You have been tasked with paying for the access to new fire stations and recreation centers, a decision made in 2011 by the voters that now have electricity bills and lawn care bills and staffing bills that are coming due. Your focus was on the citizens. There have been unexpected increases in health care. Collectively, you have committed to provide valuable healthcare products to employees, retirees, and their dependents. While the unexpected increase in healthcare, you have been studying ways to provide this benefit, but in a more economical fashion. But for this immediate budget, we know this cost remains high. In the past 8 weeks, you have struggled with legacy commitments to outside agencies and trying to match it to the reality of the available funding today. Your legacy commitments include $8 million annually to be paid out for OPEB, $15 million in pension contributions, $25 million in health care, $70 million in salaries, debt previously incurred that we will continue to pay an increasing amount as it comes due. Utility, fuel, and operating needs leaves a very small amount of yearly expenses that you can reduce. But you have worked diligently over the last 8 weeks to identify every travel, vacancy, and operating deduction available. Any healthcare savings or operational savings will be committed to fund balance, but more intentionality is required to build up reserves. You have been diligent in your pursuit to reduce the expenditures. However, the old commitments outweigh the areas that can be reduced. While you have no local control to raise sales tax, you do have local control to determine the appropriate property tax needed to pay legacy funding commitments and the new issues of the day. Through these conversations, that has led us to the multiple versions of the budget that I think we have a slide for. We'll be discussing today. It starts on your left, the financial advisor looking forward for the next couple of years, reminding you that OPEB commitments remain, debt payments remain, and that a $5 million increase would give you some ability to put money back in your fund balance. The option that was presented on May 8th was the increase for 3.7 mils. That still includes 3 unpaid holidays for employees, but it also includes some money to work for blight demolition. Met and found some of the operational deductions. Those are now included in all of the remaining varieties. And that includes unfunding, not removing them from the org chart, but unfunding almost 30 positions. It also has a scenario where you have taken travel and reduced it greatly, and some operational items throughout the budget. And you have kind of come to a decision from the mayor's original proposed outside agency funding of $9.3 million to increase it to $10 million. And you keep some of the blight funding in place for that. You have a variation that runs down all the way to 1.99, but I'm going to lead with the 3.29 as it is the one procedurally that came out of operations and finance, to see if we have discussion or guidance of how you would like to move forward with speaking to the detail or taking a vote on one of these budgets.
Julie, thank you very much for that review. So we now have literally the budget is on is tabled, but this meeting is to remove it from the table and discuss the various versions of it. I think at this point, the first thing that we need is a motion from someone on the commission to discuss a particular version of the budget that they would like to advance, and then we'll discuss it. If there's a second, we'll discuss it and see, and if there's a vote, if we fail to get 6 votes, we'll entertain a second version of the budget, and we'll look at that. Commissioner Jones, I've got 3 people waiting, but I had your light on first, sir, so I'll observe that protocol and call on you.
Thank you. Can we get the proposals back up on the screen? Thank you. I'll talk about my proposal. Many of you weren't here Tuesday. We should never be in this position we're in now, so I'll repeat that. Commissioner Watkins was out of the country due to his MBA program, and I want to publicly thank him for all his due diligence, looking under every rock, trying to find places that we could cut. He and I don't agree on some things, but I respect and appreciate everything he's done in this effort to find ways that we could cut that wouldn't hurt, be less painful. So, several things. We shouldn't be in this position. Revenue projections were overestimated 3 years in a row. We ask a few questions, some of us. Commissioner Watkins probably asked more questions than any of us. We got false figures for 3 years in a row to support the budget. Consequently, you gotta say we never had a balanced budget. Never had a balanced budget. That's unfortunate, but that comes from the administration. That comes from the top. That was done by design, and we were set up to fail. Unintentionally, but we were set up to fail, and fail we did. My particular proposal, I got one little tweak to it that I want to cover. Mine is, nobody wants an increase. I don't want an increase. I'm a property owner as well. Nobody wants an increase. We're put in a position where we're forced to have a millage increase. There's no realistic, rational way to get around that. It's just a matter of what are we going to cut? What are we going to keep? And Julie, I appreciate Julie's statement. That was very well stated. And we inherited this. There's a tradition, a legacy, whatever you want to call it, of all these outside agencies. And I understand some of them I wouldn't call outside agency. I wouldn't call maybe MTA an outside agency or of the public library an outside agency, but many of them are. So there's a history here that goes back for decades of supporting these agencies coming on stream, and they do tremendous work, and they are truly an amenity to what we have in this community. No two ways about it. My number 4 calls for 3 unpaid holidays. That's 3 furlough days: Columbus Day, President's Day, Good Friday. So what that means, 3 days where an employee would have off but wouldn't be paid. They fall in 3 different quarters of the year. You wouldn't be paid, but you'd have time with your family. It cuts outside agencies from 10.7 down to 7.9. It unfunds some vacancies. As you may or may not know, we had 2 assistant county managers, and Julie Moore is one of those. One left, so we took that out of the budget. We had an agreement on that, and different vacancies like the Director of Small Business Affairs, we took that out of the budget. The Director of Business Development, we took that out. We had cut cost in travel expense, as Julie mentioned. Mine calls for a 4% contribution to the pension plan. We contribute anywhere 17 to 21% for each of those plans, and one of them's really strong, fire and police, and the other 2 are all fairly strong. They could be stronger. So I'm asking employees to make an investment in their future. I know that's not what you signed up for, but it's hard to find. I don't think you can find another plan in America where the employee doesn't contribute anything. Could be, but I don't think so. So the one little change I'm going to make to mine is take out the Community Enhancement Authority. That's an addition. I was reluctant to vote for that, and I did. It's $96,000 for a worthy mission. My reluctance was only because it was an addition when we can't even fund what we already had on the books. So that $96,000 would come out of mine, and here's why. I'm a music person. I love music. Commissioner Bivens and I talk about music sometime. He grew up listening to country music. He's got a great voice, and he loves country music. I do as well. I grew up listening to Motown. That's my music of my era, child of the 60s. I love the Four Tops, Levi Stubbs Jr. and the Four Tops, David Ruffin and the Temptations, Martha and the Vandellas.
Commissioner Jones? Commissioner Jones?
Yes, sir. I'm going to make my point, please, sir.
Please.
That's my music. So I was thrilled to know that we're recognizing Little Richard right here from Macon, Georgia. Right here from Macon, Georgia. Otis Redding. We called him the Big O back in my day. So I'm delighted that we want to recognize him. The Community Enhancement Authority, they met this Tuesday at noon for the first time, I think. There are 3 board members on there. James Beverly, Representative James Beverly. We appointed Josh Rogers about a year ago. And the 3rd board member is Isaac Culver. Isaac Culver is a federal indictment for money laundering and fraud. And I'm going to quote Josh Rogers here because he told me I could. He was taken aback when Isaac Culver was in the room. What we found out was Representative James Beverly has a salary from this endeavor of $65,000. $65,000.
Incorrect. It's not from this.
Saying where it's from,
It's got-
but that's a
Well,
salary. I don't know where it comes
You're
from.
out of order at this point, Commissioner
No,
Jones.
sir,
If
I'm
you've
not.
got a motion to make, you better make it in a hurry, sir.
Don't jeopardize my freedom of speech.
I'm trying to keep you out of trouble. That's what I'm trying to do.
No, sir. In addition, the board members get a 5% commission on any property that's sold. That really bothers me. Josh Rogers asked for financial statements, profit and loss, policy procedures. Nobody had them. Asked for them in writing, still doesn't have them. There's been a legal opinion that says this structure is okay, according to Blake Sharpton, the attorney, but yet he doesn't know who did it. He doesn't have a copy of it. So for all those reasons, I take out the $96,000 going to Community Enhancement Authority, and my motion calls for a 2.25 increase of millage. I don't like that, but we're going to have an increase.
Is there a second to the motion, Commissioner? Commissioner Watkins, one of the 7 variations of the budget, he chose. Point of order. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Committee approved item as far as I can tell. I know I've been missing for the last meeting, but I didn't see any action taken, any amendments made. So as far as I know, there's only one valid document unless there's been an amendment made to that document. I would like legal's opinion on that, please.
In my opinion, my ruling is that this is basically a motion to substitute for the version that was tabled. His version.
That would be one motion, to make a motion to substitute, and then if we wanted to amend the substitute after the substitute passed, would then be the process. But
well, you could certainly do that. But I'm going.
Back to my point of order. What are we doing now?
I'm trying to explain it. I'm trying to explain it. What we've got is, as in my parliamentary procedure analysis, we have a motion to substitute Commissioner Jones' version of the budget. And the next thing I'm going to do is call and say, is there a second to the motion that would substitute his version for the Operations and Finance version? So is there a second to Commissioner Jones' motion to substitute his version for the Operations and Finance Committee version? Is there a second? Wait a minute. There is no second, so the motion fails. Now, is there a substitute motion? Does any commissioner have another? Commissioner Lucas, I have your light on next.
Yes, my question is there a motion on the floor? Do we have anything we're dealing with? Did we untable? We have a tabled budget bill. It needs to be, we need to, county attorney can, as parliamentarian, can tell us where we need to be. I understand there's nothing on the table to amend.
Make a motion to remove that one from the table.
All right. Is it appropriate for me to do it? Because I'm...
That's fine.
That kind of threw me that we were dealing with something when we didn't have
Fine.
anything.
Give me just a second. If we'd put the chart back up, please. So I'm afraid of that.
No signal. Did
There
I
we
do
go.
that?
There we go. The third column over is the committee approved budget.
Right.
You
I
see
would like to
motion by Commissioner Lucas to untable that,
Right.
or to substitute that for the topic of conversation. So is there a second to the motion to take that version off the table?
Right.
Thank you, Commissioner Chapman. We got a motion and a second to take that version off the table. So that version, the third version, is 3.29, 3 unpaid holidays, $10 million to outside agencies, et cetera. You see it listed there. Total $162.6 million and a millage rate of 20.942 total, which would be the increase of 3.29. And there's even a little analysis at the bottom to show how much that is per month on a $100,000 house of additional taxes. It was something that they added at my request to the bottom just for reference. So we got a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on, I'm going to call it the committee approved version of the budget? Is there further discussion?
Ms. Mayor, may I?
Let me get to Commissioner Watkins first.
Oh, okay. Mr. Chair.
And I'll be brief. I think everybody knows the landscape at this point, how we got here. This budget, even though it's adding $12 million to our last year's spend, it is providing the same level of service that we provided last year. It's minus a few things. This is the same services that you got last year with no major changes. And unfortunately, if you have a $100,000 house, in order to maintain that same level of service, it's going to cost about $100 more per 100,000, is my understanding. And that's unfortunate, bad information. I mean, it's not what we want to say, but that's the cost of it. If there are proposals to reduce those numbers further, understand that I heard, and again, I've been gone for a while, so I had a chance to sit and reflect. So when I hear the phrase, we don't want a millage rate increase, that means that we want to maintain a budget of 150. And rough numbers, that's whether or not you think about it of outside agencies or general employees or however you want to lump it, it's $50,000 per person. That's about 200 folks that would not work here come a couple months from now. That's what I hear when you say 150, that you want a budget of 150. And where I'm curious at is where those cuts come from. I still haven't seen that. I see 6 proposals, but I just don't see that. And even when we talk about the outside agencies, I think the one Mallory was just spending, those are people and services that we no longer want. So if that's what we're voting for, that's what we're voting for. But I need clarity on that.
We certainly don't have any details on that yet. That's not the version that is now motioned and seconded. That version is the 3.29. Is there further discussion on the motion and second to adopt the version of the budget that would adopt a 3.2 or anticipate a 3.29 mil increase, 3 unpaid holidays, $10 million to outside agencies, and $2.6 million total budget? Is there further discussion? Hearing none, I assume. Didn't we? No, okay. I'm so sorry. I need all the help I can get up here. So we had a motion and second to take this version off the table. So to take it off the table, then all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. It's off the table. So now we've got a motion and second to approve it. Is that correct? Your motion to approve it in a second, or do you want to make that motion to approve it? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Unless the chair wants to, I'll yield to the chair but I would like to speak to it. Go ahead.
again, for me, I think the committee did its due diligence in trying to find a budget that was reasonable. We have professionals that have told us that we should be doing 5. The mayor originally proposed 3.7. Worked as hard as I could to find some cuts and got it down to 3.29. Again, but that is because I'm very interested in maintaining our same level of services. And don't misunderstand me, I'm not extremely happy with the way we address blight, the way we address homelessness, the way we address education. We barely keep a clean city. Again, blight should be a major issue in this budget. It is not. We can do a lot better towards public safety. We are not. We are just trying to maintain what we've been doing, which is the same Macon that we get with 3.29. We're not putting any money in our fund balance, which is a mistake. Dave Lucas just got through telling us that. Our other financial advisors, David Corbin and Matthew Arrington from Terminus, wrote a very eloquent letter explaining to us that even at this 3.29, that's not what the city of Macon actually needs to stay vibrant.
So you moved to approve the 3.29 version. Okay, and Commissioner Lucas,
Second.
you wanted to second that. Do you have additional comments at this point
Yes.
that you want to make? Go ahead.
Yes.
You're
Thank
recognized.
Thank you. I think everybody knows, as a matter of record, I have stated over and over that I am not in favor of a tax increase, and I'm not. I own property, and we've seen the rise in the taxes. It's just fortunate that there are some things that you can take off your income tax, some of the things associated with ownership. I looked at the $5 million increase and I said, no, we just can't do that. Then I looked at the mayor's proposal, the 3.79. That's unacceptable. Then it's been my privilege to serve as a member of the Appropriations Committee, and prior to becoming a member of this commission, I served on the Appropriations Committee for the Macon City Council. And we did thorough reviews every year. Over the last several years, we have not been afforded that opportunity. Some of us have asked for that opportunity to look line by line at the individual budgets and also to talk to department heads, to have them to tell us. They're the ones working with this, and have them to tell us what they asked for, how they can justify what they're asking for, all of those kinds of things. But it's just been since Commissioner Watkins became chair that we have had anything approaching in-depth budget hearings. And this has been a turning point, I feel, in this whole process. Up to this point, it's been kind of one-sided. We've had someone to present a budget to us, and this is not a criticism of those folks, it's a criticism of the process. But we've been given a budget. We've had very little input as to any changes or whatever. We've just been cautioned, we're running out of time. Y'all, please vote on this. Go ahead and approve it. And because of that, this last budget year, I voted against the budget because we were not adequately involved in that whole process of determining what should or should not go forward as far as finances. And now we find ourselves in this situation. And I think it's incumbent upon us, even though I started out saying that I would not vote for a tax increase, in these budget meetings that we have had, I have been convinced that there's so much of this money, of this budget, that is what they are terming legacy funding that has to be maintained. There are courts that have court orders that can demand that we do certain things, and we do have, in certain instances, orders for things that we must do. So what is the percentage? I guess I needed to ask this before, but the percentage is huge as far as what's already allocated that has to be allocated to public safety. That's fire and police and 911. Those entities have to be maintained at a certain level. So you're only left with a little bit of money to deal with. That's discretionary, that you can move around, that you can change, take from one pot, put in another, reduce. It's a very little pot of money that we're dealing with, and therefore it's a very difficult decision. I finally reached the conclusion after all of the work that we did in the budget sessions that we needed to approve something that gave us a starting point. The 3.2 mil increase, the 3 furlough days, the 10 million to what they call outside agencies, which is a misnomer. They're not outside agencies. Macon Transit is not an outside agency. All of these different things. DFACS is not an outside agency. Most of their money comes from the state and comes through us. And the money that we appropriate locally, that additional money goes for reducing the number of foster kids that are just out there floating from place to place.
Commissioner Lucas,
And
was that your second?
anyway, I didn't know that we were going to have time called, because I think it's important. The other point that I want to make is that this last legislative session, now this whole thing that I'm seconding is in conjunction with the plan to have monthly reviews of all financial procedures and all transactions, to also have our internal auditor involved very closely with all that we do, to get the experts, as Commissioner Allen and I have asked, not necessarily a forensic audit, but a review, a deep dive into our financial situations and our transactions. And also a review of our financial policy recommendations, our policies. That, I think, these things are very, very important. I think that's what you expect us to do. That is what we are pledging to do. The last thing, Mr. Mayor, before you pull the on me, is the OLOST. My husband, Senator Lucas, represents 90% of Macon-Bibb County. He is in favor of an OLOST that is an additional penny, 50% going to support the operations of Macon-Bibb's government, including these regular reviews and the other things that I've mentioned, and the other going to property tax rollback. Property tax rollback. And so Senator Kennedy, who stalled us this last time and kept us from getting that OLOST on the ballot to vote on, represents a little slither of North Bibb County, I believe, and lives in Monroe County. Now, here you have someone who represents 90% of this county, who says that he is willing to work with the others in our legislative delegation to come up with something that's going to help bring our community back to financial health. And you have another senator who represents just a slither of this county. I don't know how many voters that is, but it's not a whole lot, and lives in another county, who made the decision not to work with us. So I think our goal is not only to approve this, which is somewhere in between the extremes and helps us now, but also to push for that OLOST and also the monthly reviews
Thank
and
you,
all
Commissioner
of the other procedures that we want to put in place to ensure that we never are back here again, because frankly,
Thank
I
you.
don't like being here.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas.
But that would be my proposal. It's common sense. It's what we need to do. It's right in the middle.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas.
Everybody shares. Everybody shares in the pain,
Thank
but everybody shares a little bit in the positive outcomes too. So
Thank-
that's my take on it, and those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Lucas. Mayor Pro Tem Tillman, got your light on next, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This morning when I woke up, I knew that I had to do a few things, and that was to attend at least 3 funerals today and to vote for this budget. We're blessed today to celebrate State Representative Miriam Parris's mom. My cousin Wayne Walker, whose funeral starts in about 5 minutes. And of course, Kel Jackson. On the Finance Committee, you have Watkins, Lucas, Jones, and Schlesinger, that the mayor and I, along with a 3rd member, appoint a finance committee to go in and hash out his budget. Once that's done, they make a decision, they vote on what they deem is necessary and hoping that the commission will pass. They did that. And then you have a member of the same committee that will at least come out with 4 to 5 different additional versions. So it's like, are we really being team players? You know, we are trusting and putting members together on a committee to come out and share information with us and give us their version. So you pass a version as a team, and that's what the team's supposed to do. You know, it's not you decide something and then the member of the team comes out and come up with 4 different things again, and here we are. So regardless of what we do today, I'm prepared to go out in this community and listen and hear and just be honest with folks. And Chris will help me do this, but I'll start out in Lake Tobo, South Bibb, East Macon, and West Macon to listen and explain and share the decision we done. I support whatever this commission supports. Unfortunately, I do not like furloughing employees because at the end of the day, they have to and want to come to work and do their job. They, I think, are totally innocent in this entire process. So I'll be a team player today and support the 3.29 that this finance committee came out and said that we needed. And then I'll continue to fight, as Ms. Lucas has said, because 5 of us did go up and talk to the local delegation, but I think what we failed to do was take our finance director and those that's truly understanding finances with us to explain this OLOS. And I think what the public needs to be educated on is an OLOS simply is something that we hadn't done since the 1970s. Everybody screams, I don't want taxes to go up, but this community really hadn't passed an OLOS since the 70s. We're at 6%. Some people will say, no, we're at 7%. No, we have a SPLOST that funds so many projects of $280 million with a 1 cent penny. So we hadn't seen an OLOS pass since the 1970s.
Mayor Pro Tem.
And so hopefully with this budget here, we can begin to reduce property taxes, because it's not fair to just put the onus on all property owners. If my son goes into a store and buys snacks, he's going to pay into the OLOS, but he doesn't pay property taxes. And so whatever we do today, I hope we are be committed to fight to reduce and roll back these people's taxes. And I'm not afraid to make a decision, and I think and I hope that we all can make a decision today.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Appreciate that. Commissioner Watkins, Chairman Watkins, got your light on next, sir.
Just as a matter of procedure, I just want to point out the necessity for us to pass a budget today. This is the last possible meeting we could have before July 1st because of advertisement and time and law. And doing nothing, we do not have a balanced budget as a county. So that is not an acceptable way to go into the fiscal year. I have the time, so I'm optimistic that this budget proposal on the table currently passes. But just please understand that I know that there are substitutes and other options that if this doesn't pass, don't everyone get up and walk away because we should finish.
Thank you, Chairman Watkins. Mr. Jones, got your light on again?
Yes, sir. Simply, could we put the so-called outside agencies up attached to the 3.29? Can you do that?
I'm not sure we've got a slide to do that. We can do it. Maybe able to do a handout so that you.
We got that 4 proposal pack. It's on the seat of my car, but. Packet that had 4 together.
You want me to read them? That's the fastest way I could do it.
I'd rather just look at it.
Okay. For the group at whole, let me say
fine.
this does have $180,000 in for Navicent, $600,000 for the health department, $302 for River Edge. DFAX is funded at $700,000, MTA at $245,000, Citizens Advocacy $4,500, Meals on Wheels $40,000, Middle Georgia Food Bank $11,550, Economic Opportunity Council $88,000. The library is at $2,816. The Douglas is at $100. Museum of Arts and Sciences at $200. Tubman at $230. Macon Arts Alliance at $30, and Sports Hall of Fame at $100. Planning and Zoning $810. UDA $97.2. Industrial Authority $475.2. Industrial Authority Economic Development $350. $7,000 for Forestry. Land Bank Authority $172.8. Keep Macon-Bibb Beautiful $110. This currently has Community Enhancement Authority in it at $96 because these were the options that were voted in out of committee on that day to get it to $10 million.
Okay, if I may continue, Mr. Mayor. And we can all disagree on what ought to be on outside agencies, and you know, I love the men and women at the medical center in Navicent Health. Had a family member in there recently, got excellent care. Love all those folks. I get emails from doctors and nurses every 2 or 3 weeks about this, that, or the other. They're not happy. Everybody ought to have it memorized. In 2016, Navicent Health had a net profit of $800 million. They have 400 days cash on hand. We as a government have 19 days cash on hand. They have 70 properties valued at over $270 million because they are a so-called nonprofit. They're registered as a nonprofit. I'm sure that's a legal registration. So that property, they should be paying over $4 million in taxes. They pay none on those properties. So 400 days cash on hand. We have 19. At the top, CEO, $1.4 million annually. COO, $1.3 million annually. That's a matter of record. Why would we give money to an entity, regardless of the amount, when they don't need it? So I wouldn't be able to support anything. I wouldn't be able to support anything that we're giving money to somebody who doesn't need it. All those other agencies are worthy.
Commissioner Jones.
And they actually need it.
Commissioner Jones.
I yield my time.
Do you wish to make a motion to amend?
No, sir.
Okay. Commissioner Wynn, got you next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As many of you know, as all of you know, I'm the new kid on the block, and that's not being humorous about it, but 2 days ago I was sworn into this position, and I'm glad to be here. Luckily for you, I've been watching you and listening to you for the last 3 months, not just in general commission meetings, but in your committee meetings where the real work is being done and the conversation is being had, and I thank you for letting me be there. Not that you could stop me. Well, Mr. Commissioner Jones has expressed a lot of what I also feel about our finances for our community. First of all, I'm a lifelong resident of our community. I've been here 66 years and want to stay here. And I love a lot about this community. But what I want to talk about is where I think we need to work a little harder. I am not in favor of the current proposal on the table. And if I could go through just a few of these things, I know some people have already agreed that these are not outside agencies. But the fact is, these people that work for these agencies, they're called outside because they're not employees of the city or Bibb County. We don't pay their salaries. They do work for the city. A lot of folks do, but we don't pay their salaries and their benefits. So that's why I think they're considered outside agencies. Yes, there's a lot of legacy commitments that we have to fulfill. I realize that. I've learned more about that. But let me just go through a few of the things on the list because Commissioner Jones just did a few. But besides Navicent Health, and by the way, HCA Coliseum treats indigents, and they treated more than the medical center did in cost of dollars. And we don't give them anything. The Macon-Bibb County Health Department is on here. The River Edge Behavioral Health is on here. Let me go to what's called outside agencies under welfare services, DFACs. They have other funding. Macon Transit Authority, which includes paratransit. We need our transportation system in the community. I know that we consider those outside agencies because there's some matching funding that goes on, and they're not exactly a city department. Citizens Advocacy, Meals on Wheels, Middle Georgia Food Bank, burial services for people that we don't know where they belong. We have to have that. Economic Opportunity Council. Those are the welfare services. Now, a lot of people say, how can you cut anything from that? Well, they receive funding from somewhere, grants, donations, and they could probably get more contributions if they went out and looked for them. We need to talk to the directors of those particular agencies to see what they can do for funding. I'll give you an example, and I threw this out to the mayor. It may sound silly, but I think it has merit. Meals on Wheels. We're talking about vehicles that go deliver meals to the elderly or the people that are shut into their homes that can't get out. It's kind of similar to the backpack, what am I trying to say? The little backpack programs that churches have for children. When we're looking after children, we're not looking after our senior citizens. Well, we want to do that. Meals on Wheels is the way we do that. Why not get someone like a big industry that we brought in here, which I appreciate, and they brought jobs and money to our community, Kumo Tires. We gave them a 20-year tax deal. Why don't we ask them to sponsor Meals on Wheels? You know, Wheels, they make tires, Meals on Wheels, sponsor them for 10 years. I know that Kumo Tires and a lot of our industries like the Irving Company, all those places get hit for donations and contributions. I know that. But let them, we've given them, and the Irving Company, is that the name of it, the Irving Company? They've given us, we've given them 20-year tax deals. Let's take a little bit and say, I know Irving has done some things for us already. They want to be members of our community. Let's ask them for a little more in the way of donations. I think the Irving Company gave 2 donations of $15,000 apiece for something we're working on. If you don't mind, I'd like to have the floor's attention. I hear some discussion going on. Meals on Wheels, that's just one idea. Middle Georgia Food Bank. You've ever been into Kroger where they ask you to up your amount to the next rounded dollar for various donations for charities like Children's Hospital or something like that? I know they do it at my Kroger, or the one I go to. Why can't we do that for Meals on Wheels for a month? Why can't we go, and why can't we do that with the Middle Georgia Food Bank? And when we say Middle Georgia, we're not talking about Bibb County. We're talking about surrounding counties that get some help from that. We need to go to our surrounding counties and say, hey, why don't we get some more money from you in the way of community church donations? A lot of our churches are generous when we ask for that kind of funding. We need to ask our community, you guys that are sitting out here, if I said to you today, we're going to cut the funds for Meals on Wheels, and I don't mean to pick on them, but they're just here, would you go out tomorrow and make a personal donation to them? Would you ask your churches to go out and make a personal church donation to them? Would you find alternatives of funding to make them keep going? Meals on Wheels, we've got in here $40,000. That's not a lot of money, guys. Not a lot of money. We need to keep that agency. But we need to do it beyond the city's property tax funds.
Do you have a motion?
I'm just discussion. Can't we have discussion?
Yes, ma'am. We can, but please keep it pertinent to the issues that we're voting on. And if you've got
These outside agencies are pertinent to our budget, Mayor. May I finish, please?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Thank you. We need to keep the community services like Douglas Theater, Museum of Arts and Sciences, Tubman Museum, Macon Arts Alliance, and the Sports Hall of Fame. But we need to find alternate funding. They need to find it. We don't. Would you rather close down city departments when we don't have a budget, or would you rather close down some of these? Temporarily. We probably funded these when we had money. We don't have funding. Mr. Mayor?
Ms. Hunt, we're not going to have comment from the audience. Please, ma'am. Ms. Wynn, go ahead. You have the floor.
Sir. These were probably funded at a time when the city, the community had funds. We are not at that time right now. I realize that some of these things I'm talking about are maybe 2 or 3 or 4. Maybe they total up to $8 million, but that's an $8 million savings if we can save some of these and find other alternate funding for these agencies. I am not in favor of the current proposal that's on the table.
Thank you, Commissioner Wynn. Commissioner Watkins, I have you next, sir. Do you have additional comments you wanted to make?
Amendments made, but
No.
on the Navison, I don't want to dispute point for point, but the 800 in net margin is not quite correct. Hey, sure. I'm fine.
Chairman Watkins has the floor, please.
I would ask Commissioner Jones to review the financial statement from Navicent in the future. And just to clarify, yes, DFACS and Macon Transit Authority receive state and federal funding depending on the organization, but most of those are contingent on the local spend. It is a 50-50 matching, so that is exactly how Macon Transit works. We can have as big of a transit authority as we want to locally, and the federal transit will match that with 50-50. We can have as small as the transit authority as we want, and they will match that 50-50. There's no minimum or maximum. That's how New York supports the subways and other places. Our fare boxes, unfortunately, make up less than 10% of their total revenue. It's not a self-sufficient organization. I understand that, but these are decisions that we have to make. DFACS is the same way with a lot of their positions. It is a 50-50 match. You can have the position, you cannot have the position. Some of it, I think we want to have child protective service officers seem to be important. And I simply love some of the ideas that I just heard. And I'm sure probably those directors are writing down or possibly have implemented in the past some of the things that were mentioned. But a lot of that takes time to set up. A negotiation with Irvin or Kumo takes time. And it is a maybe, maybe not scenario. And I just want to point out that between Citizen Advocacy, Meals on Wheels, the Middle Georgia Food Bank, the Burial Services, and the Economic Opportunity Council, Macon-Bibb County spends less than $150,000, just rounding. That is not by no means 20% or 50% or a significant portion of what these organizations spend or what they have budgeted. For example, is $4,000. That's no one's salary. That is Macon-Bibb's contribution because we want to see seniors and those in need be taken care of, and that is a pittance. But again, if there are motions to be made, I know the mayor is really I get it. There is an opportunity to make motions and have them voted up or down. I'd just like to point out.
Right. There currently is no amendment. We have a motion and second on the committee version of the budget, but no amendment is currently pending. I got 4 people waiting. I can't tell who they are. I just know the next ones have turned on the light was Commissioner Lucas. Commissioner Lucas, it's back to you at this point, but I've got others that are also waiting.
Okay. I just wanted to add what our chair is saying. And I feel very, very strongly as a retired educator, and teacher, and counselor from my work at Springdale to other schools in the Teen Parent Center, Hutchings Career Center, and now as the owner and director of a Second Chance program that has helped over around 1,000 students to go back to school and to earn their high school diploma. I'm speaking from not what I'm thinking, but from what I know is happening in our community. This government, a lot of people have feelings about what government should or should not do, and that's fine to have your opinion. But we, as the legislative branch, have to look at the reality. You can look at what you feel. We're looking at the reality. The reality is that Navicent Health has been funded over the years to the tune of upwards of $4 million. I think Commissioner Allen said up to that amount some years ago. Last year, I think it was $451,000. This year, a compromise number has been developed, and that's $180,000. Navicent provides $22 million in indigent care services to our citizens, and not only the folks that are here in Bibb County, but this is a hub hospital here. It's a trauma center here, so people from other counties come in to receive their health care. But Navicent, I believe my figure is correct, and I stand to be corrected, but I believe it's correct. $22 million. That $180,000 is included in the budget just to say, if we support what you do for our citizens, and if that $180,000 assists you in applying for a grant showing that there is local support for the other monies that you receive at this hospital, then we are all in as far as support. But $180,000 doesn't go anywhere as far as touching the total amount of indigent care that's provided to your children, grandchildren, relatives, whomever it is that's indigent and goes to Navicent for treatment, and they are obligated. They're not where they need to be. I agree on that. But there are organizations working with them to get them to where they're doing a better job of providing the indigent care. But $180,000 is what's in our budget. $22 million is their actual cost. Over at DFACS, there is a waiting list of foster children to be placed, to be provided services, and to be placed in a safe environment. A portion of the money that we appropriate for DFACS goes toward reducing that waiting list of foster children. And then Meals on Wheels, there's a 200 person waiting list there for a meal. Many of our constituents depend on Meals on Wheels for that one meal and that interaction and that welfare check on someone who has nobody else. So you might have your feelings, but we're operating with the real deal, the real information, and these are people that are being impacted in direct ways. So I would encourage us to go ahead and approve this. We have said we are committed to doing the monthly reviews, to looking to get our finances back in order, and taking more of an active role in making sure that we take a close look all the way through on your finances. So I encourage you, please, to support this. We need to do something.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. Commissioner Bivens, I've got you next, sir.
When we talk about outside agencies, I want to say, I mean, I support the Tubman, but we also have something like, some of this is a misnomer. The Douglas is owned by the county. Land Bank is an agency of the county. We have, of course, we have the libraries and the Transit Authority, and you know, that we also control. But my concerns go back to the first year of this government, when I said we might need to change our slogan, forward together, because this community was not moving forward together. And a few months ago I said that I would not support more money coming in this community to be used in a disparate manner. So that's where I am.
Thank you, Commissioner Bivens. Commissioner Wynn, I had you next.
Yes, we are still discussing this proposal. Is that correct?
Ma'am?
We're still discussing the proposal on
The budget in general. There's no amendment to it on the floor
Not
at this
making an
point. It's just general discussion of the budget itself. Yes, ma'am.
To continue with the point, these are outside agencies, no matter how you want to look at them. I didn't name them that. That's what they are. If we have 200 people waiting for Meals on Wheels, that's a shame. You need to go out and do something about that if you're in the public and listening. You can make donations. But what are they being fed right now? Or who's feeding them right now? Someone is. And they'll probably get their time. But we need to have someone else to support these outside agencies. I doubt that the community knew that their property taxes were being spent on these 23 outside agencies. And by the way, Commissioner Watkins, I realize that some of these are funded and we have to match funds like MTA. Planning and zoning should be a city department in my view. I know that the library and the bookmobile, they have some funding that we have to match to be able to stay open. I'm aware of that. I've listened to the meetings, so thank you for just reminding me of that. But we need to look at the expenses overall. We need to look at things, and I'm going to pick on the Sports Hall of Fame because my good friend's here. We need to keep that open. I don't want to lose that like we did the Music Hall of Fame. We need to have some people come out and do fundraisers, additional memberships, whatever it takes to keep them open. We need to do that. That's important to our community. That's a cultural activity that we need to have, a cultural facility we need to have. Folks, we just don't need to take it out of our property taxes. Did you sign up for that? I didn't. And I would like to be able to use the property taxes I signed up with to run this city. Law enforcement, fire department, facilities, emergency management, the administration costs, things like that are what property taxes should go for in a city. And that's what I pay mine for. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wynn. Commissioner Jones, I've got you again, and then I've got Commissioner Schlesinger next.
Real quick, outside agencies, we've been talking about this for 3 years. Please set up a foundation, do what you need to do to raise money for next year, because guess what? We're going to be right here again next year talking about a millage increase again. Referring to my colleague, Commissioner Watkins, Navaston Health, the information that I gave you came from the tax assessor's office, the tax commissioner's office. It came directly from Navasant, who spends $15 million in indigent care. HCA spends $17 million. That came directly from the people who track it at those hospitals. So I assume, since that's what they do for a living, they know what they're talking about.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones.
So all of that was correct. The other information came from an open records request filed by the Telegraph. I know that was correct. The amount of 400 days cash on hand and a net profit in 2016 came from Tyler and Company, who Navasant hired. So I assume, since they were their client, they gave us correct information.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Schlesinger, got you next, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As long as we're putting our cards on the table, I'm going to put mine on the table as well, and I'm going to be brief. I am not going to vote for any budget that includes a millage rate increase simply because there are many families throughout District 2, which I represent, and that's like, Fort Hill and Houston Avenue heading south. there are many families in District 2, and there are many families really throughout the Macon-Bibb County that just can't afford it.
Thank you, Commissioner Schlesinger.
Oh, I'd like to call the question if I could.
Yes, sir. We've got a motion to call the question. Is there a second to call the question? We got a motion and second to call the question. All in favor of calling the question signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The question is called. That cancels other people that wanted to speak. And we are now, and I presume we want a roll call vote on this. So we'll proceed. Those that want to vote in favor of and adopt the Operations and Finance Committee version of the budget that has been under discussion would vote yes. Those that want to defeat it would vote no. So we'll start with Commissioner Wynn. Commissioner Wynn votes no. Commissioner Schlesinger votes no. Commissioner Lucas votes yes. Commissioner Jones votes no. Commissioner Bibbins votes no. Commissioner Allen votes no. Commissioner Shepard votes yes. Commissioner Watkins votes yes. Commissioner Tillman votes yes. I have 4 yeses, and I have 4 noes. It takes 6 votes to adopt a budget. So that version of the budget has failed. Now, is there further discussion, or do we want to discuss a different version of the budget? Commissioner Lucas, I got your light on again.
Yeah. I just want to say people really need to examine themselves. They're just so misguided on so many things and so uninformed on so many things. It's just really, really sad, and it's heartless. The outcome of our not moving ahead. But I wanted to ask, in your opinion, or the city attorney, if we reach the end of the month and there is no adoption of a budget, where does that leave our, how many employees? How many do we have? 1,800? Is that the number?
About 1,800.
Where are we at that point? Maybe Chair of Appropriations can also chime in, just for my information.
Well, hopefully we won't get to that point. There are a couple of other versions of the budget that I hope we'll discuss and talk about here momentarily. but I trust we won't get to that. So at this point, may I say it's not quite germane yet.
Don't want to answer. That's okay.
Okay. Well,
you
good.
Tell me later.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Watkins, I've got your light on, and then Commissioner Allen, I've got you next, sir.
I'll be happy to yield for anyone who has a motion or a substitute motion, or amending this budget in any type of way. I'd be happy to yield for that.
Okay. Commissioner Allen, got your light on next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to apologize to you folks and the people that's watching at home. And this should have been done back in that back room when we were having meetings. It should have been completed back there. We didn't take the time. We didn't do what we were supposed to do. And we're coming out here and politicking in front of you out here trying to get something passed. I'm sorry. I hate this happened. You're going to be here for a while, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen. I see no other lights at this point. I see no other lights. So yeah, right. That may take us to Commissioner Lucas's discussion. I will say this: I'm disappointed that we haven't adopted a budget at this point, and I was concerned, as Commissioner Lucas just asked, about what happens if. So we've also got several commissioners who've indicated that they would vote for a budget that contained no millage rate increase. So I have asked our Director of Budget and Strategic Planning to try to put together a budget that does that, and I will call on her to come forward and try to explain it at this point, and then Commissioner Lucas will address your specific point of what would happen if we didn't adopt that, but hopefully we won't get there. Julie?
As we began this process several months ago, we determined that the revenues that were agreed upon would yield $149,472. That's $149,472,000, and that was based on the financial recommendations from Terminus to budget 99% of what we're collecting this year. So we had projected that we would collect this year 149, and we're really going to be about 150. But we're using that conservative estimate at 99% so that we ensure that we have revenues that are accurate going into this year. With a budget of $149,472, if we have to cut expenditures, we also need to be mindful we have OPEB coming on and the other things that are happening. So the first thing that we feel like would have to be addressed are the outside agencies, in that we do not have a contract with any of the outside agencies. We don't know when we would have that contract. We typically pay those appropriations on July 1st or the first of the month. So this budget at $149,472 eliminates outside agencies wholly. That's library, MTA, and everything else. It also takes parks and beautification and recreation to a 30-day window so that we can appropriately give them a RIF notice that those would no longer be funded departments. And it takes the contribution out that we give to Bowden to operate that golf course. What voting on this does, at least for today, is have employees show up on Monday, which is July 2nd. So employees show up in Parks and Recreation and Parks and Beautification. We have 30 days estimate pay. We have Bowden could operate for 30 days. We would not pay appropriations to outside agencies. Is what is before you.
Commissioner Watkins, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Point of information: in 30 days, what happens?
Well, let me do this, if I may. But before we get that, we've passed around now a version of the budget that is what we were referring to as the $149 million. It anticipates no additional millage rate. We arbitrarily, and I do mean arbitrarily, tried to figure out a way to back into 149, and there is absolutely no pretty way to do it. Julie just discussed it, and we can discuss it a lot more in detail if there's even a motion and second to adopt it. I'm going to say that further discussion really is not even in order unless we have a motion and a second to further discuss it, to adopt the 149. That would be a version of the budget with no millage rate increase. Is there a motion to adopt a version of the budget that has no millage rate increase in it? Commissioner, I got Commissioner Schlesinger.
Well, literally exactly what you asked for.
Right, Commissioner Schlesinger, I've got your light on, and I recognize you if you've got something to say, sir.
Well, this says interim budget for fiscal year 2019, and as a, I mean, if we really are at an impasse and we need something interim, I guess this is the best that we've got going at this point. Although I really think it needs to be presented to us in more detail, or maybe sent to the Operations and Finance Committee for discussion. But if we're at an impasse and you need a motion for an interim budget moving forward, then yes, I'll make that motion.
Got a motion by Commissioner Second to adopt this version of the budget. Is there a second? Commissioner Allen is the second. Now that got a motion and a second on what I'm going to refer to as the $149 million interim budget, and go back to Commissioner Watkins. Commissioner Watkins, you were discussing this before, so I've got you next, sir.
Please define interim. Please define how you mean by interim. I got a couple of times.
Okay, let me take a stab at that. We had to call this something just to distinguish it from other variations of the budget. And I would say this:
there was any other
I would venture to say this: any version of the budget that we pass obviously is subject to amendment throughout the year. We all know that. We do it on a constant basis. It's a living, breathing document, and as we watch revenues come in and expenses go out, we are constantly amending the budget throughout the year. So they are all really interim. The reason we call this interim is that this would be a budget that would officially appropriate money so that we could be open and for business on Monday without treading into uncharted waters and not knowing exactly where we are, which would be a very difficult thing for us to do. So this would meet a budget. But the reason we really chose to call it interim is because we have about another 45 days in which we could discuss this budget and its implications before we are called on to set a millage rate and give the number to the tax commissioner so that he can incorporate it into the bills. I think the commissioner may even be here right behind Julie. I think, is he here? Yeah. And I think he has to have a millage rate. And usually we adopt a millage rate in early August based on the budget that we have passed. So the reason we call this interim is that we could still have discussions, and if the majority, 6, voted for a budget that anticipated a millage rate increase, we would still have a little time to do that before mid-August. So I guess that's why we called it an interim budget. But if no revisions were made in it, it would continue. And we will try to live with it for the whole year is kind of what we're trying to do.
Thank you for that. And just so I'm clear, I heard this is, if you pass this tonight before July 1st, this is the official budget appropriation. We can sugarcoat it however you want to, but this is the official budget document that will be passed by the county.
That is true. That is true. And the commission could change it.
Right. Okay. So, but if you pass this document tonight, it anticipates no millage rate increase at 149. So for me to come back tomorrow and try to amend the budget is
absolutely.
So this is the official document.
That's absolutely right.
There's no interim in the.
That's absolutely right.
We made that up. So let me talk about the 30 days. You mentioned 30 days as it pertains to parks, recreation, and beautification.
The tax commissioner has to have the millage rate document.
No. I'm not asking about that.
I'm sorry.
There was a 30-day. So we used to spend $4.8 million in recreation. This is anticipating 30 days left for.
This is anticipating that beginning next week we would begin notification to RIF employees that were.
Who would be affected?
I do not have that number.
People work in parks and recreation. How many people work in beautification?
We are probably at 52 in Parks and Beautification. Is Parks and Beautification here? And recreation, because they have seasonal employees too, I'm trying to think what that total number would be. It's going to be around 50 as well.
Please.
So
let me. All outside, $10 million from outside agencies and 100 employees from Parks and Beauty. And that's also, so it'll be clear, we're not only are we riffing people, but we're saying that we will not cut any more grass in the county, because that's who does that.
Well, Public Works cuts the right-of-way grass, but Parks and Beautification.
Our parks. And we're also saying that we're going to close all parks starting September?
August the 1st. We have to give employees notice of a reduction in force.
Let me just say one other thing about this budget.
That's what it says, right?
Yeah, but let me say one other thing so everybody's very clear what else is in this. This still maintains taking 3 unpaid holidays for current employees. And let me explain that, because it is different than some of Mallory's proposals or Commissioner Jones's proposal. This unpaid holiday would exist within the confines of the holidays that we have already described and that we already have. and that people would basically be deducted 24 hours or 1.15%. And Finance and I have been discussing this and figuring out how we could best distribute that across annually so that it would not be a one-day impact on a holiday and not get into having to take extra holidays where we'd have to pay overtime to public safety. It would basically be a 1.15% deduct to salary. It would, on average, be $16 to $20 a paycheck. But as I mentioned in a previous meeting, it will still be something we will need to address next year, unless you're going to implement just a 1.15% decrease. For this year, it is considered an unpaid holiday based on holidays we are already taking. That's the first thing, and it is in this number. Secondly, you have some outside agencies that we are going to have to make very quick decisions about that typically get appropriations next week and will not be getting appropriations. So to your point, to the mayor's point, this is a starting budget, but it will have to be amended. And then the people we will have to meet with next week to begin a RIF policy, and there may be some discussion about departments of how you want to really distribute that.
Could you refresh my memory as to how many people, I know they're not a department of the city, but how many people work at the Transit Authority?
Wow. I think I have that number because we don't operate it. I don't know how many people.
Commissioner Watkins, can I move on? We got, I got six lights on. Commissioner Jones, yours was next.
Just clarification, so we're talking about an interim budget ordinance. It goes through July 31st, but what you're saying is if we don't amend it between now and then, that's what we're going forward with. So all the outside agencies will be continued to be funded as they are now.
No, in this budget, there is not a single dollar for outside agencies.
Zero. They're all zero.
$350,000.
All of them zero. The Transit Authority is zero. The library is zero. They're all zeroed out. Plus recreation is gone. Plus the other thing. That's the only way we can back all the way down to a $149 million budget.
So this is the last thing I was trying to say earlier. When we started talking about what David Corbin was trying to remind all of us is that we have legacy funding commitments. So for employees that are here, this fully funds the amount of health care we think it's going to cost this year. It fully funds the pension. It has all of those legacy commitments. This funds OPEB for our retirees. It does all of that, but in order to get down to the 149, because of the legacy commitments, we have prepared this budget so that we can at least open doors on Monday.
Commissioner Jones, can I move on? You had the floor, but it. Yeah, I've got other lights and people. Wait, Commissioner Allen, got your light on next, sir?
That's fine.
No, okay. Pass. Got Mayor Pro Tem Tillman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. For the sake of civility, I'd like to offer an amendment that we replace the interim with option number 4. Budget, please. To replace the interim with substitute number 4 for the interim budget, please.
That would be a substitute motion
for the
this
2.5.
This version that's on the floor. Is there a second to the substitute motion? Got a second from Commissioner Jones. Then all those in favor of further discussion on the substituting version number 4 on your chart there that contemplates.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Is it 3 or 4? Which one are we looking at?
Item number 4, substitute number 4.
Only 2.25 mils?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And what we would do, Mr. Mayor, is essentially going back to my original statement that our employees are so sacred to us that I don't think any of us would want to see those departments
Right. Okay.
miss
I
anything.
understand, but put the chart back up for me one more time. I want to be sure that we're right. Looking at the chart that's on your screen now.
Yes, sir.
Don't look at anything on your desk. Look at the one that's on the screen. That's
Yeah.
the one everybody's looking for. You're talking about substitute number 4. That has a
Substituting the interim
that has a-
149 and
well,
for
hold on. Just
substitute
let me just clarify this. That has the 2.25.
Yes, sir.
Well, that was the one that Commissioner Jones moved on earlier. That was his version that has the 4% contribution requirement from the employees and didn't get a second. Is that the one that you're now moving that we discussed?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and Commissioner Jones seconded that. So that's the one that's on the table now. And just looking at your chart, it's still got 3 unpaid holidays. It reduces outside agency spending to 7.9. That has got some unfunded vacancies and operational reduction, and does have this 4% contribution to the pension that you're voting to implement, and a 2.25 mill rate increase. So Mayor Pro Tem made the motion to approve that. Commissioner Jones seconded it. Now, further discussion on that. Commissioner Lucas, I've got your light on next, please, ma'am. And if you would, confine your comments to this substitute so we can stay on track. Please, ma'am.
Well, I hope that this question, I'm sure it applies to any budget that's before us. I wanted to ask about the situation that we're in with mandated spending. In each of these budgets, are the courts, how is that handled? Because in some of our discussion, we found that the courts had to be funded. Certain things had to be funded, and some of it state mandated, and supplements are state mandated. They tell us, and we have to implement all of that. So we can't change that kind of stuff. So is there a lot of that as far as the court system? I know with public safety, there are certain mandates. You got to have certain things. Fire protection, you got to have. So I guess my question is, with those things being mandated, we cannot change, and we shouldn't be able to change those. But where does that leave everybody else? You know, is that where we're doing it to everybody else? But there are some that we can't do it to. So is that fair?
That is almost $102 million worth of your budget currently. When you look at fire and sheriff, and you look at the courts, and you count in your 911, public works, we're at $102 million just with those very necessary and departments that we don't feel like we can change, which is part of why the 149 version ended up at the departments that we do have the ability to control as the local government.
That is why I have a concern about this. It just does so much damage in so many different places, and there are some things that are mandated, some things that we have to do. That's what we're trying to get folks to understand. This pie is already, there's parts of it that are already cut and eaten. We can't do anything about it. We've got a few little slices that we're trying to deal with and be fair to employees. And it looks like to me that with those departments where there are not mandates, where you cannot cut, those are the ones we're going to do without the services of those departments. And those folks are the ones that are going to be negatively impacted. And so that's not a fair way. That's not a fair way to treat all of our employees, because all of them are just as important as others. Some are just protected, which is okay. But we need to do something to make sure the others are protected as well. I sure hope we're not sitting up here being heartless and inconsiderate because we just want to be. I hope it's because of lack of information.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. Commissioner Schlesinger, I've got your light on next, sir.
The reason I said that I would like for something like this that we're just getting, to be sent back to either the Operations and Finance Committee or the Committee of the Whole is simply to see if having Parks and Beautification and Recreation take the entire hit. I mean, are there other options for, perhaps other departments need to be included in this, and you need to have a 5% belt tightening across the board, or 10% belt tightening across the board. My question and my sense is that this may not be our only option, but if we need to put something in place and then to modify it, and when I say modify it, I'm talking about next week, sometime soon, then I think that's what we need to do today.
I will say.
Let me point of clarification, please. What we're discussing now is not the interim budget. There was a motion, a motion to substitute version number 4. This 2.25 mil increase with the 4%. So that's what's under discussion right now. That's what's under discussion right now. And the only way I think that we would get back to the other one is either to vote this one down and then see if you can go back to the other one. But at some point, the county attorney, first assistant county attorney, has indicated she'll talk to us about what if we don't do anything. So we'll get to that momentarily too. So is there further discussion on this version of the budget that's currently under discussion?
My question moving forward.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Watkins, I've got your light on next, sir.
So just so I know the landscape, I'm understanding that for us to be talking about the budget that is
2.25 mil increase is the version that we're talking about now.
5.
We don't look at the handout. Look at the screen, so we're all talking about the same thing, and the people out there in the audience know what you're talking about. It's actually substitute number 4 on the screen version.
So to that document,
we've had different handouts.
That document I would like to propose. So substitute 4, which is the 2.25. It currently includes a 4% contribution to the pension from employees.
It does, yes, sir.
And my understanding is that is valued at about a $4.8 million worth of contribution or savings.
I don't know the answer to that.
It's 2.4.
Well, my understanding that 1% of our was 1.2. Okay, this is for 12 months or 6 months? I'm not sure.
About 11 months of a 4% contribution.
Okay, so this is
2.4.
2.4. All right, so I would like to make a motion that there are no pension contributions from employees. Yes.
Obviously, if you do that, you're going to have to increase the millage rate to have a balanced budget. You can't just
that would be an extra
you just can't take that out because that's a revenue line item.
So that would also
that's a revenue line item. So we'd have to come up with either other revenue. Sorry. Want me to come back to you?
So you withdrawn? Hold on. So to stay on track with you though, yes, I understand that if it's worth 2.4 million, that is roughly half a mil. So at this point, this proposal, if accepted, would be worth 2.5 mils instead of 2.25 mils. Is the proposal that I'm proposing?
I'm not sure about your math, but you'd have to increase the millage to make up to compensate for.
Yes, and a mill is worth 4. Typically, 1 mill is worth 4.
We're not quite sure yet. We're waiting on the tax assessor's office to tell us exactly what is what.
Based upon our history,
based on
a mill is worth $4.1 million.
That is our driving assumption. $4 million a mill. Yes, sir.
That's the assumption.
Yes, sir.
So if it's increasing by 2 something and some change, I forgot. I'm very close to a half mil, so maybe 5.6 mils. I mean 0.56 mils would be the increase, which would put you. Am I in the ballpark here? Which would put us at like 2.5 mils on this proposal if it were passed. Is what I'm proposing.
0.75.
Sponsor is actually accepted as a friendly motion, so y'all don't even have to vote on it. That's just.
Julie, I need a little bit of help then. Are we saying that we are eliminating the 4% contribution to the pension?
Yes, and I think that's one of the main differences in the two proposals that Commissioner Jones had made of significant dollars. The 2.75 did not have the contribution, and the 2.25 did have the contribution.
So what I'm trying to figure out though is that in order to accommodate the elimination of the requirement for a 4% contribution to the pension, how much would we have to go up on the millage rate? And Commissioner Watkins just tried to do that back of the envelope and came up with 2.56. Is that what he said?
I think you would go from the 2.25 to the 2.75, the original piece that had.
No. I'm still working within the same document. I did not say substitute 3 because substitute 3 also adds 3 assistant directors, which I don't think is assumed in this substitute 4 and possibly some other things. So I'm still working with this in this document and simply pulling out. I have no idea how much these 3 employees.
The assistant directors would only be $300,000.
Okay.
Well, there is a requirement that amendments be in writing. So if you can.
To your right.
Mr. Mayor?
Well, then I'll ask the county attorney to read the amendment that's under consideration. I'm gonna ask her to read it.
I'm sorry, my mic, hot mic.
Sorry, let me turn you off then.
Okay. If we can bring back up the chart on the screen so I make sure I refer to it by the correct number. We are taking substitute number 4, and based on what I've been providing in writing, there will be no pension contribution from the employees. And on here you had a millage rate anticipated of a 3.25, but from the sounds of things, you're looking at more like a 3.0 millage rate maybe?
We would be taking it from a 2.25 to something closer to a 2.75.
Okay. So it'd be 2.75.
Well, I would prefer that you just second it. Thank you. All right. So now what we've got a motion on the floor to amend substitute number 4, increase the millage to 2.75 from 2.25, and eliminate the requirement for a 4% contribution by the employees to their respective pension plans. Got a motion and second. Is there further discussion on that amendment? Commissioner Jones, is your light on to discuss that amendment? Yes. Go ahead then, sir. You're recognized.
I won't vote for that amended version. I would propose another amendment following this vote on that substitute number 4.
Okay, well, we'll come back to you then, depending on the outcome of this vote. Mayor Pro Tem Tillman got your light on next. Did you have anything further that you wanted to say at this time?
Well, I guess I'm confused. I mean, you second the motion and you gonna.
We're getting around to the vote. This is just discussion right now. So Commissioner Wynn, I've got your light on next. Did you have further discussion on the amendment?
The amendment actually is to take, looks like, if you put those back up one more time, sorry. It sounds like it's substituting number 3 for number 4.
We're still discussing substitute number 4. That's exactly right.
Substituting 2.75 into the substitute.
Right, which is going to make it look a lot like substitute number 3, but come down to about the 3rd column down. There's going to be a difference about adding assistant directors that's not present in substitute number 4.
The 4% contribution.
It eliminates that. This amendment would eliminate that and raise the millage to 2.75. All right. Is there further discussion about the amendment? Seeing no lights, I assume you're ready to vote. All those in favor of this amendment signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. We certainly didn't get to 6 ayes. I can tell you that much. But let me clarify. An amendment only needs 5. So let me see the hands, just to be sure, the hands of the people that want to vote yes on this amendment that's been under discussion. Let me see the hands of those that want to vote yes on this amendment. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the amendment fails. We need to get at least 5 to amend it. So we're back basically to square one. Is there which would be that version number 4 without the amendment. So that version is 2.25, but it requires the 4%. Let's vote on that and get it either up or down. Commissioner Jones, did you have further discussion on substitute number 4?
The amendment I want to make to substitute number 4.
This would be your time. You're recognized, sir.
Okay. Want to remove the Community Enhancement Authority. That's $96,000. I want to take that $96,000, add $48,000 to the Tubman, and $48,000 to the Douglas.
Because at least when he brought it to me, it was written.
Writing it up.
Okay, so what Commissioner Jones wants to do now is to take out the money for the Community Enhancement Authority, and to instead, it's supposed to be in writing. If you got it in writing, give $48,000 to the Tubman and $48,000 to the Douglas, and not fund the Community Enhancement Authority. Is there a second to that amendment? Is there a second to that amendment? There is not. That proposed amendment fails for lack of a second. Is there further discussion on the motion?
Yes.
Commissioner Watkins, I got you next, sir. Did you have anything?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to restore $100,000 to the Douglas Theater line item, which has been zeroed out of this proposal.
Can we get a point of clarification? Because I don't think there's anything on the table at this point.
I don't know what he's looking at this point.
We don't have anything.
We don't have the schedule. I don't know what, Julie, do you have the schedule for the 2.25 version and what did you give it to him? Ah.
This at the 2.25 has no funding. No funding for Navicent, $510,000 for Health Department, $302 for River Edge. Has no funding for DFACS. Has MTA at $2.2 million. Citizens Advocacy at $4,000. Meals on Wheels at $36,000. No funding for the food bank. Burial services included at $30,000. No funding for the EOC. It includes funding for the library at $2.5 million. No funding for the Douglas. Includes $150,000 for the Museum of Arts and Sciences. No funding for Tubman. No funding for Macon Arts. $100,000 for Sports Hall of Fame. It includes $810,000 for planning and zoning. $97,000 for UDA. Industrial Authority at $475,000, as well as the $350,000 for the land. $7,000 Forestry Commission, $170,000 for Land Bank Authority, and $82,000 for Keep Macon-Bibb Beautiful. This does not include $96,000 for community enhancement.
So my question back to Commissioner Watkins, he said he wanted to restore the funding or increase the funding for the Douglas by $100,000. My question is, where do you get that money from? Where are you taking it from? What are you cutting to add that 100?
So more revenue from millage rate.
Huh?
More revenue from millage rate. That's how we are gonna, which would, I don't know, 1/10 of a mill at that point. No, that's
right. Do you withdraw that motion?
No, I do not.
Okay. So is there a second? So is there a second to the motion to add $100,000, but to the Douglas? Is there a second? Very good, Commissioner Lucas. I had you next anyway, so maybe you can address this particular amendment as well.
Thank you. are we prepared to just stay here all evening going back and forth, or are we going to do what's right and remand this to the Appropriations Committee, since our chair is back, to call an immediate meeting so we can go through all these details? Because right at this point, I don't know about y'all, but I'm not sure which document, where we are, or what. I mean, I thought I was pretty sharp, but maybe I can't. There's been so much that's gone on. We need to take a little bit of a break and then come back to this. And I am willing to give the time tomorrow, Monday. I mean, y'all are full time now. We're part time, so this is a real thing for us. So I'm willing to do what we need to do very quickly to have some more discussion.
Let me take a point of privilege here and get the county attorney. I think this would be an excellent idea to try to answer your question. Are we planning on being here all evening? And then I'll ask the county attorney to address for us what would happen if we didn't pass a budget today. This is the last opportunity that we have to pass a budget. Right, but this is the last opportunity we have before the deadline, because we can't meet tomorrow, we can't advertise, have another vote on the budget, et cetera. So this is the last opportunity. So may I call on the First Assistant County Attorney to say what she's learned thus far about where we're going if we fail to adopt a budget today.
As the mayor stated, unfortunately, we cannot call a meeting tomorrow because we have to be able to give 24-hour notice of a special called meeting. Unfortunately, we are treading into uncharted waters if a budget is not passed by the deadline. There is no case law out there that addresses what occurs if you don't pass the budget by your deadline. Just to be quite frank, is there a possibility we'd be exposed to some potential litigation for failing to pass a budget by the deadline? Yes, there is that possibility. In addition, we have outstanding bond obligations. If we don't pass a budget by the deadline, one of the things that we are required to do is to make sure that we make those payments and that we don't miss any of those payments, because if you were to miss any of those payments, they could then take us to court, get a tax and levy against us, and force payment on all of those outstanding bonds that fall in that category. So the facts of the matter are we're just venturing into something that has never been dealt with before within the state of Georgia.
Right. So if again, let me take just a point of privilege, just to say, because we got this information from the county attorney is the reason we came up with an interim budget on the theory that any budget that is adopted here today would be better than no budget. Any budget would be better than no budget. No budget, we really are. We're sailing into uncharted waters, and we don't know exactly what we would do or how we would do it. We would have to improvise, and improvisation always is problematic. So that's why we came up with this interim version. Harsh as it is, terrible it is, we could try to amend it and get it back to either the committee of the whole, which is where this has been tabled and where we're having this conversation, and try to get everybody on board, or at least 6 of us on board with passing any change or revision to it. But we thought that having a budget would be better than having no budget today. And I don't know if that's responsive to your inquiry, or if you would like further information about that. Commissioner Watkins, back to you, sir. Got your light, and then Mayor Pro Tem got your light following that,
No,
sir.
I yield. It's just been on the whole time.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem?
Mr. Mayor, because those amendments did not pass, for point of clarification, we are back at the interim budget. We should be back at the interim budget because those substitutes and amendments did not pass, and so.
Well, technically, I would like for you just to move again that we revisit the interim budget, because there was it was a motion, but there was a substitute motion that was adopted. So technically, then we were on to the second.
Right. We're back to the
right. So
interim.
I think for clarification, if you just would make a motion that we go back and reconsider the interim budget.
So move.
We've got a motion by Mayor Pro Tem and second by Commissioner Shepard to reconsider the interim budget. All in favor of reconsideration, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, so we're reconsidering now the interim budget. So let's confine our conversation and our comments on the interim budget. Julie, you may have to answer any additional questions that people have about what it does and what it doesn't do. But this would be an effort to help us pass a budget that we could then hopefully revise in subsequent meetings. But it contemplates no millage rate increase at this point.
And it provides for people to come to work on Monday.
And it what?
Provides the opportunity for people to come to work on Monday.
Right. Is there further discussion? Commissioner Schlesinger got your hand up. Light on, sir.
Go back to the question I asked before. As presented to us, and again, I haven't read through this, but from what I can understand, Parks and Beautification and our Recreation Department take the hit. Is there another option? And this is something I suppose we could discuss next week or 2 weeks from now, or whenever. And I'm certainly not advocating a cut in public safety in any way. But is there other options for maybe across the board belt tightening within our departments, so that Parks and Beautification and Recreation, which are a couple of departments that really affect our population most?
I think I could answer that question by saying that any budget is subject to being amended and revised, any budget, and that could start as early as next Tuesday. Well, actually, next Tuesday, I guess, is a full meeting. It's July the 3rd, and we're scheduled to meet in the evening of July the 3rd. But pre-commission, you could start there or whatever.
I would just only add that we have, to Commissioner Lucas's point, $102 million we really can't do anything with. And so that makes the bucket smaller of what. But you did approve last year in May of 17 a new RIF policy, and so if you were wanting to apply that to other departments, I think that would be part of your conversation going forward. Right. Again, this was just a way to open the doors on Monday.
Right, and I think, Julie, we've talked about public safety and fire and can you discuss whether there were any cuts to any of the other constitutional officers? My impression is they were not cut from the budget that came out of operations and finance in this interim budget.
There are no cuts.
Mr. Mayor, I want to make sure when we walk out of here today that we are clear that we are funding public safety in our courts system.
We are under this interim budget. This part of what we asked the Director of Budget and Strategic Planning to do was to categorize services into 4 quadrants. 1 was essential, 2 was necessary, 3 was desired, and 4 was discretionary. And so what we have done is, admittedly, we have arbitrarily selected recreation and parks and beautification as being the ones that we thought would be least likely to affect public safety and public health. So we funded things like sanitation and fire and police and the courts and et cetera, but obviously there'll be a lot more discussion about this, but this was also an effort on our part to try to demonstrate to the community we really are not teasing. We really, in order to cut and have no millage rate increase at all, you're going to see some absolutely draconian cuts, not just to outside agencies. No, so that's not going to be a thing that you really enjoy, I think, once you see what happens. But I could be wrong there, too. I got Commissioner Watkins, is your light on again?
I know I've
Yield.
been speaking extensively, so if anyone else is in front of me, I'll yield my time. But I would
Commissioner
like to
Shepard,
stay on
let's hear what you've got to say, sir.
I would urge my fellow commissioners to vote for this interim budget. And then as we need to next week, if you want amendments, we can make those amendments then, instead of beating this horse to death.
Okay. Can I take that as a motion to call the question?
Yes.
Motion to call the question and second by Commissioner Allen. All in favor of calling the question signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it in the opinion of the chair. The question is called. Now, all those in favor, Commissioner Lucas, point of order, I'm sorry.
Well, not point of order, but I had a very pertinent question on this. What would that be? A point of
inquiry. How about that?
Good
point of inquiry. What's your point of inquiry?
How many employees are we? Am I to assume that there are? How many employees am I to assume are affected by the reduction in force in parks and what were those departments?
Parks and beautification and recreation, and I think we were trying to get to that a little early and came up with about 100.
Yes, and our HR director would have to give you all of the specifics of the numbers, but we will provide those.
What does that look like? For the point, what does that look like?
For the point of this document, it at least keeps money in them for the first 30 days for us to figure out what that RIF looks like and how and when they will actually be asked to no longer work here. And so this keeps payment so that they will come Monday to work for a discussion of what this looks like after 30 days.
All right, I'm gonna call it in to a point of inquiry and say that we had a motion to call the question and a favorable vote to call the question. So I'm gonna turn all the lights off. Those that are Commissioner Jones, point of clarification, sir.
You seem to have ambiguous language. In the first paragraph, Julie, it says through July 31st. In the second whereas, it says beginning July 1st and ending August 14th. Which is it?
I didn't write that.
It contradicts itself.
Right. What we're trying, August the 14th is drop dead on trying to get a millage rate. So if you're going to change on a millage rate, so I would say it would be through August the 14th to try to carry us through August the 14th.
Paragraph 1 say the same thing?
Make it all August the 14th. But I'm confident you're going to see a lot of changes in this in the next 2 weeks. Next 2 weeks.
Contradicts itself.
I eventually say, but so that's the point of clarification. This will be to try to carry us through August the 14th. All those in favor of the interim budget at this point would vote yes. Those opposed would vote no. So we'll have a roll call vote again that I'm assuming everybody wants. So we'll start on the opposite end this time, just for to change things up. Mayor Pro Tem, how do you vote? Yes or no, sir?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem votes yes. Commissioner Watkins, how do you vote? No. Commissioner Watkins votes no. Commissioner Shepard votes yes. Commissioner Allen votes yes. Commissioner Bivens votes no. Commissioner Jones votes yes. Commissioner Lucas votes no. Commissioner Schlesinger votes yes. Commissioner Wynn votes yes. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 votes. Yes votes to adopt the interim budget. We have an interim budget. Then is there any further discussion or conversation that anybody wants to come up with at this point? A point of personal privilege, etc. Commissioner Lucas.
I have one other question, if I may ask it. Where and y'all took the vote, but where are the agencies? The Macon Transit
zeroed out.
Macon Transit
zeroed out.
DFAG
zeroed out.
all of those
Zeroed out, every
entities
single one of
that
them.
our constituents depend on.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
That's
Yes,
why
ma'am.
I voted no.
That's right.
And
Okay.
will continue to vote
Thank you.
no.
That, is further point of clarification, Commissioner Watkins?
I don't know what you're expecting the committee to do next week. Today you passed a budget that zeroed out everything we just zeroed out. That is how you, if you wanted a millage rate neutral, that's what you just passed. And nothing is going to change the landscape. If you don't want to do a millage rate increase, well, if you want a Parks and Beautification Department or a Parks and Recreation Department or any of the agencies that we just mentioned to continue to exist, you would have to vote for a millage rate increase in the next couple days, or we finna start riffing people. That's, I don't know, what can you think you kick down the road, but that's 100 people from 2 departments that are internal, 72 people that work for the Transit Authority, and curations and books that are finna dry out and rot if you can't decide that you want to raise millage rate. I don't know what.
I'm confident we're going to have a lot more discussion about this next week, Commissioner Watkins. I'm confident. But right now, we've adopted an interim budget. Is there further discussion? We've reached the end of our agenda. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Got a motion and a second to adjourn without objection? We're adjourned.